Hi, this is Dani Doyle, and I am just awestruck and incredibly grateful for hitting 3K subscribers. This is a milestone that I didn't think I would ever hit back when I first started YouTube. I just thought I would, upload some silly little 0% growths videos and just see where it goes from there. But this year has been a huge year for me, both in my personal life and in my YouTube life. Personal life, I got married, which is awesome, and I'm still just like, I fucking love my wife so much. So that's, better than anything that has happened to me on YouTube. I'm sorry, y'all come secondary, but YouTube has been great for me as well. I hit 3 separate subscriber milestones, that being 1K, 2K, and now 3K. And I hit 3K right at the end of the year, which, is kind of perfect timing because, the end of the year is the best time to sort of reflect on everything that has happened, and since this has been such a big year for YouTube, I kind of thought that the best way to celebrate my 3K milestone would be to look back at all of my so-called Friday videos, the name that I have for the more long-form content that I release regularly on Fridays. Because while this channel did start with Let's Plays, and I do still have a lot of Let's Plays planned that I have a lot of fun with, I do think that it has sort of morphed into the Friday videos being the bread and butter. They get the most views, and I work the hardest on them in comparison to my LPs. I spend a lot of time editing and scripting and recording and all that fun stuff. Well, okay, to be fair, most of them are largely unscripted, so I don't spend that much time scripting, but I put a lot more effort into the Friday videos than I do into my LPs. And I think that they are, bar and large, responsible for the massive amount of growth I've seen this year. I started with them this year, and that's sort of where things took off from. Now, this video is as much for myself as it is for y'all, because I think it is important and good to reflect on what I've done in the past and see what I like, what I dislike, how I would change, and how I have changed since then. But because tier lists are incredibly fun, and let's be honest, they also get quite a few clicks, I am going to be organizing the various Friday videos that I've done, as well as videos that I feel fall in the same sort of category, into a tier list. So let's jump to it. So I've thrown the thumbnails for all of my Friday videos, as well as a couple of specials, on the tier maker. And apparently the tier maker thing just randomized them. And honestly, I think I just roll with it because it's kind of boring to just discuss them in order. I'm just going to go with the random order that tier maker gave us. And to start out, we have a very recent video. The Ests video. I don't remember the titles of every single video, so I'm just going to, based on the thumbnail, say what they were about. But the Ests video was my most recent in the Archetype series. It was a 2-hour-long, nearly 2-hour-long video that I put more effort into this video than any other video I've made for the channel. I made a survey and had a bunch of respondents for it, and then I did a significant amount more editing than I normally do. Just to have things like, Doga popping up when I'm saying don't mess with Doga. To have all of the various, survey responses pop up at times that are relevant, cuts to, Oifibot when the statistics are relevant, cutting footage around so that, when I'm talking about one thing in particular and I have, a clip that is relevant to that, having that show up. I modified a couple of ROMs in order to get footage of 60 stat Nino, 60 HP, capped everything else, Sage Nino, killing a bunch of the units in Endgame. I put a bunch of effort into this video, far more than I do most of my other Friday videos. This was, for anyone on the Patreon knows that I've been updating people for 2.5 months about the progress of the S-Post. I scrapped a bunch of aspects, and then restarted, and I really like how it ended up. Sort of the transition from a more serious analysis to ROM high propaganda to just the descent into madness. I threw a bunch of little hidden jokes hidden around there. I think that this is... I'm going to put it in great / I'm proud of it. Just because it's, I don't think it's my best work. I want to save best work for, there's 2 in particular that I'm very, very proud of, but I'm proud of the S video. I like how it turned out. I like, yeah, I like it. I'm very happy with just it as a product. Speaking of products, this is the thumbnail for my review of Fire Emblem Engage. I'm gonna put this in, it's fine. It's definitely not anywhere near my best work, but it kind of feels like an obligation. As a Fire Emblem-centric YouTuber, you kind of got to do reviews for the Fire Emblem games that come out. I think it's fine. I don't think it's very good. Or I don't think it's bad, but I don't think it's like... yeah, everyone has a fucking Engage review at that point. If anything, like, my opinion was not super necessary. But I got it out fairly quickly. You know, I beat the game fairly quickly and got my first experience through fairly quickly, so that, I guess I'm pretty proud of. I think I had it go up, like, either the day of launch or the day after. It was on that Friday, so, yeah, I think it's fine. Not too much to say about it. This is the Cavs video, where I talk about all the people in the Cavalier class line, just sort of whether they're good or not, how I feel about them. It was stealthily also like Vander propaganda, because this was at the time when everyone was shitting on Vander, and like, I'll take the L, I started it. When Engage first launched, I said that he was worse than Gunter, and I talked about hating him. But I think Vander's like a solid B-tier unit, and people just like don't want to accept that a unit can be good for a portion of the game and not like the end game, right? Like Vander's good for more chapters than like Morbius is, for example. But yeah, that aside from revisiting Vander propaganda, I think that this video was pretty good. Yeah, I think pretty good is probably a good place for it. I like my analysis of Vander and Amber, although I did mention the Halberdier build. I'm gonna give myself the W here. I talked about how I didn't like it, but I'd seen some other people, you know, swear by it, both in my chat and then there's a couple other tubers who like said they liked it, so I felt obligated to mention it, but I did say that I didn't like it, and I've gone even sourer on it. Like, I think Halberdier is just a bad class, and that Halberdier Amber or Halberdier anyone is just a bad choice. I think my Alfred analysis was also pretty good, but my Marin analysis was like very bad. I wanted her in Wolf Knight, and I just don't think that's a good place for her anymore. I mean, it wasn't back then, I thought it was then. It sucks because, like, you know, the canonical class, but I'm lower on Wolf Knight Amber than I was. I still think it's a fine place for him, he can make it work, but probably prefers to be a warrior. She probably wants to be a wyvern. I think it's pretty good, but like, it does have some outdated stuff in there, but it is also, you know, it's outdated stuff because it is an outdated video. Like, it's from fairly early in the Engage meta developments. This was my tier list of the paralog maps, just basically how much I enjoyed them versus didn't like them in Engage. If it were not for the circumstances around this, I would put it in, I would approach this differently now. The reason that I made this tier list was we had a family emergency and I didn't have a Friday video prepared, and I had just started doing Friday videos. So I didn't want to miss it, so I was like, I'll just throw together a tier list. It's low effort, and it is low effort, and I stand by my rankings. Like, I liked some of them, and, well, I liked the Tiki one, and I disliked most of them, and I fucking hated the Krabben one. And I think that that is still how I feel about those maps. I don't super think that, like, tier list content is the type of content that I want to do. I do tier lists at the end of my various, like, playthroughs, and I think it can be, like, interesting to do tier lists of, like, units in terms of how good they are, just as, like, a fun, basically as a vehicle for unit analysis. But other than that, like, I'm not super here for tier listing, like, how much I enjoy specific maps, personally. That said, you know, like, as a video, like, the circumstances around it, the fact that I had to babysit my nephew all week, and so, like, I wasn't prepared, I think It's Fine is a good place for this. Christmas special. This will be the most recent video on the channel. At time of recording, it's finished, it's scheduled, it's gonna upload, you know, at the correct date, but it hasn't gone up yet. at time of recording. So, I can't really say how well it's going to do in terms of, like, reception. The Patreons have already seen it, and they liked it, or the feedback I've gotten is positive, at least. But I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's pretty good. I sort of approach it with, like, I mean, you've probably seen it by now, because it's already out by now, but I rather than analyzing the archetype, just, like, looking at the units, like I did with the Jagans and Ests, and Trainees, this is more because the archetype is about a pairing, like the Cains and Abels. I compare them to each other and do sort of like a naughty and nice-less thing and sort of like pretend that it's a scientific analysis to figure out which is better. Obviously, like, the scientific analysis part is a joke. Unit analysis is not objective. There is no objective measure for unit analysis in Fire Emblem, and it is silly when people pretend that there is. But I do genuinely, like, the people who I say are better are the ones who I genuinely think are better, and I explain my reasoning. I think it's pretty good. I'm not really ordering the tiers. I'll vaguely try to order them, but I'm not super concerned with it. I'll order them until it becomes too much of a hassle. So, like, I think this is better than the Cavs video, so I'll put it up there. So this was my preview of Death and Tactics, 5 points in production SRPG. And I am happy with how this video turned out. Unfortunately, this video kind of has the shadow over it that 5 Points' Kickstarter was not successful. And that sours this for me, because I did give some criticism in the video, because there were aspects that I enjoyed and aspects I didn't, and my logic was that I think that it is important to give constructive criticism while things are in progress, so that any sort of issues can be addressed, unless, you know, you're not the target audience, which is also, you know, up to the developer to decide. And if 5 Points wanted to say, like, you know, I hear what you're saying, but also I don't think that that would work in my game. I don't think that's a improper response, right? But the thing that sort of, like, holds shadows over me is I keep worrying that, like, the way I presented the demo that I played, and the fact that I was more critical than I am of finished products, whether that had an impact on the Kickstarter. And I know that there's no way to know, obviously, and I don't think it was wrong for me to give feedback. But I think about how I could have potentially phrased things differently, in order to, I don't know, with it in mind that this was going to be a publicly facing video. So I think I would approach this differently now is the place for this. Not because I'm not happy with the product, but because of everything surrounding it and the worry that I have that, maybe it wasn't being presented in the best light, it was basically just my blind playthrough, right, of the demo. And so I fucked up because I didn't understand the defend map. I fucked that one up, and I had a lot of difficulty with it because it was a hard game. But yeah, I think I would have approached this differently, TBH. So next up, we have the Paper Mario Level 1 Run Partners Tier List. And this is a bit of an oddity because normally the tier lists regarding playthroughs that I did come at the end of that playthrough, sort of in the slot. However, this was a stream playthrough, and I decided to make it just the end of the playthrough. I had that next Friday video be the tier list. I'm not unhappy with this tier list, and I'm also not necessarily unhappy with that being the, like, Friday video, but I'm not sure if that's necessarily what I would do going forward, running into that situation. The Rev video is going to be, or the Rev playthrough that we did, the Sabotage Rev playthrough, is potentially going to be another one where, like, I need to figure out where to slot that tier list in, because I do want to make a tier list for that, but I'm not sure that it is, you know, prime enough content to occupy the Friday slot, the sort of, like, coveted Friday slot. And so maybe instead throwing it in on Monday, which is sort of my empty slot, is a better way to approach it. By definition, that would kind of put it in, I would approach this differently now. It does kind of imply that I'm less happy with the final result that I am. I think pretty good is where I would put this. I would put it in a different slot nowadays, but other than that, I don't think there's anything wrong with the video. I like the sort of analysis that I gave regarding the various partners and how they moved up and down in the level 1 context as compared to vanilla context, and just sort of the overall discussion of 64's partners, because I think that they are, they're pretty samey and boring, but I don't know, I'm not unhappy with this list. I think pretty good is probably the place for it. Probably the very bottom of pretty good. Because it's sort of, if anything, it's representative of the tier lists that I make for, playthroughs that I do. And this is, you know, this is one of them. And I am happy with that sort of, like, tradition we have on the channel. This is the Thracia personal skills video. And I think it's fine. I don't know if I would put it in it's fine. It might be pretty good. Or actually, no. I think I'm going to put it in great / I'm proud of it. I'm really happy with how I attached some of those personal skills to Thracia's weird mechanics. Like follow-up critical modifiers, like authority stars, like, yeah, stuff like that. And I think that it's always really fun to work on these personal skills videos. Mostly because, like, I don't really try to... It's not intended to be sort of, like, a balancing act, right? I'm not trying to fix the game. I think Thracia's... Well, I think it has problems, but I don't think giving everyone personal skills would fix those problems. But rather instead, like, exploring the flavor and also exploring the, very unique mechanics. Because a lot of Fire Emblem games have, like, unique mechanics from each other. And it's very fun to do that. I think Thracia is one of the most mechanically rich games in the series, and being able to have personal skills interact with those was fun to come up with. I think maybe it goes in pretty good, actually, because, yeah, I think I'll put it in pretty good for now, because there's another personal skills one that I'm... Well, no, I'll put it up here. I'll put it up here. This is the avatars and romance, and how, like, they're hurting romance in, it's the SRPG Sapphics video about avatar romance stuff, and why, like, the sort of forced bisexuality of avatars, I think is bad. And sort of using that as a jumping off point to talk about my issues with the way that avatars and romantically pairing in avatars work. And I think this is some fucking stellar work. I think I like this better than the Ests video. I'm a bigger fan of my sort of narrative videos, which is why SRPG Sapphics is probably my favorite series, even though it's the one that... It comes out rarest because it's like... I put a lot of work into it, and... I don't know, it's harder to write than the other ones. So... Yeah, this is... I like this, though. I like this. I like basically all of the entries of SRPG Sapphics, but I'm happy with this. I'm happy with the discussion that it prompted both in the Discord server and the comment section. I'm happy with what I brought to the topic. And look, if you get accused of misogyny by some biphobes, you know you did something right in the video, and so I'm very happy with this. This is tops and bottoms with Akira, and I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. I think I'd put it here. The tops and bottoms ones are interesting to rank because a lot of that is, it's sort of like the energy that myself and my co-host bring together impacts it more than anything. Akira and I are friends, and, you know, as much as we talk about rivalry and being rivals and all that fun stuff, we are friends, and I think that we have a pretty good dynamic. I'm in a series on his channel, which you should subscribe to if you haven't already. If you haven't seen it, it's like I made this, like, sabotage ROM for him to play, and he's, powering through it and getting tortured. And there will be more Akira content on the Dani Doyle channel in 2024. So if you are a fan of that, look forward because they will make some more appearances. But that is all I will say for that. Although, I guess, use this as the opportunity to plug, the patrons will know before anyone else, because it's going to be talked about on this month's monthly update post, which should be going up in like 2 days from the time that this video is up. So, if you are eager to know what the Akira content is, you know, Patreon link is below. Cha-ching, cha-ching, give me money, but only if you can actually afford it. I'm playing up the Wario coding thing, but please don't actually spend money you don't have. Okay, here is the genealogy skills, and I think this is probably my favorite of the giving personal skills thing. Is it actually? I think I like it better than Thracia, but probably less than Path of Radiance. I'm going to put it here. So I did this in coordination with Casual Jacob, which, again, another channel you should subscribe to if you haven't already. And one of the things that I was really happy with in this one, I didn't intend it to be a series. I thought it was just going to be like a one-off, because I was using it as a jumping-off point to talk about the possibility of an FE4 remake the following week. But one of the things I'm really happy with is I gave the characters associated with Thracia skills that referenced Thracia mechanics while not adding new mechanics, but interacting with FE4 mechanics. The fact that FE4 doesn't have crits outside of the critical skill also sort of like constrained the design space for coming up with new skills, and it was an interesting challenge to sort of like come up with very flavorful stuff for the cast. The substitutes were the other challenge because there's not really flavor to be found in them. I'm happy with what I had though. I'm happy with all of my personal skills videos, but this is, you know, some obviously more than others. That I am tiering these after all. Alright, so next up we have the video about Panette versus Kagetsu. I think it's fine is probably a good place to put this. I'm not like ashamed of this video or anything. I do think that I focused too much on comparing the physical units to each other. I did make a note of like how the point of the video wasn't to pull some gotcha and say like Staffer or Magical is better. Like I wanted to compare someone to Kagetsu on the same playing field. But I think that that's like a little bit of a false premise as well. I think that Ivy is a combat unit. Just because she's a magical combat unit doesn't mean that she's not a combat unit, and I think that as the engaged meta has evolved, it's become more and more clear that magical units are generally just better than physical units. I also placed a bit too much emphasis on aspects of Panette's kit that I do think matter, but like I emphasize them too much. Like the personal skill makes it easier for her to do the crit build, but Kagetsu can do a crit build too, like it's not a big deal. The strength growth is really nice, but I don't know how many one-rounding thresholds it actually makes a difference for. I'm sure there's some, but it's fewer than you would think. And you can, like, especially with the SP, you can supplement things with, like, power skills, if you need to, now that we have the well. Yeah, I think this is fine. It's another one where, much like the Cavs, it's outdated. But I also think the premise was a little bit flawed to begin with, sort of discounting magical units. Like, obviously discounting Hortensia, because it's like they're operating on a different plane, and Sidal, because it's operating on a different plane, but like, I don't know, I could have also factored in Ivy, and like, if I had, I probably would have said that Panette was better, and that would have just been wrong, because Ivy is just the best unit in the game. Alright, next up we have my 420 special, Sprigatito Solo. I would approach this differently now. I'm trying to figure out what my 420 special for next year would be, but it's definitely not going to be another Pokemon solo run. Especially not of Scarlet and Violet. I've done 2 Scarlet and Violet solo runs so far. I did Iron Bundle for Christmas and Sprigatito the Weed Cat for 420. And not only is Scarlet and Violet just, like, not a very good game, and it's not fun to play in general, but in terms of, like, a solo running thing, I thought that being able to, like, unlock Terra and bring different Terras into the fight would make for more interesting solo runs. And it did, to an extent, but run into the situation of, like, you do just end up, you know, you get over-leveled because you kind of have to. the existence of Poppy in the Elite Four is another one where it's like, you need to be able to one-shot all of her Pokemon, especially with, like, you know, Sprigatito was not evolved to low base stat total, and Iron Bundle's a glass cannon. And so in both of those instances, I just had to, like, super power level by getting rare candies by going to class, and put myself in an absurdly high level advantage against Poppy, and then the last 3 trainers afterwards were kind of just pushovers as a result. And it sort of took away from any, like, illusion of strategy in the solo run, which is a shame because, like, you know, between Terrestrialization and Protean, you would think that Sprigatito Gen 9 would be more interesting. One of the more interesting solo options, but it kind of just isn't. I'm also just kind of, I don't know, not the biggest solo run person. I do think that there is some fun to be had in Pokemon solos, but especially in the later generations. Like, Gen 9 is just not a fun game to solo. Even with the, like, branching paths and stuff. Like, it has so many aspects you would think would make it more fun to solo. But it turns out it's just a shit game, and that detracts a lot from... that detracts a lot from it. Next up, we have Play Vision Quest. My biggest regret is that this thumbnail is so awful. This thumbnail is not very good. Like, this is one of the worst thumbnails I've ever made. Yeah, this thumbnail is bad. In terms of the video itself, I think it's pretty good. I think that, so this was my first ROM hack recommendation. I was much more leaning into the recommendation aspect than the review aspect. So I did overlook a couple of things that I would have been more critical on now. I do still aim to be, like, largely positive because they are fan-made things. But I think it is important to highlight flaws, or what I perceive to be flaws, rather, because in order to be, like, more holistically critical, or, you know, more holistic in my review, right? I include the critical parts and I include the complimentary parts and try to give people an idea of what they're signing up for. As a result, I feel like I can't put it anywhere higher than just pretty good. Yeah, I think this is also... I think this is good. I think Vision Quest is a good starting point for ROM hacks. And it was sort of my real starting point for ROM hacks because, like, I did play The Last Promise before Vision Quest, but, like, The Last Promise is really bad, and it kind of turned me off of ROM hacks for a while. So yeah, I think that Vision Quest being my first good ROM hack, I definitely had a higher opinion of it then than I do now. Not that it's bad, like, I'm not trying to be contrarian. I know that there's, like, a pushback against Vision Quest, like, oh, Vision Quest is mid. No, Vision Quest is good. Like, Vision Quest is quite good. It is no longer my favorite ROM hack. Probably still, like, top 3. But it's one of those instances where, like, the enjoyment that I got was largely, or at least somewhat, impacted by the fact that I hadn't played others at the time. And as a result, like, I had an inflated, you know, experience with it. It was sort of like, this is the best that Fire Emblem can be, because I truly do believe that ROM hacks are the actual good Fire Emblem. Like, they are just generally better than vanilla Fire Emblem. And I do still feel that Vision Quest is, like, better than vanilla Fire Emblem. So take that for the compliment that it is. Despite the fact that, like, I am lower on it than I was, it's not a result of it being bad. Don't fucking, like, if you haven't played Vision Quest, you should play Vision Quest, because it's quite good. Alright, this is the trolley problem video that I did. This was another filler one. Mostly just because we had another instance in the family. I had to babysit for my nephew, family emergency, all that fun stuff. And I needed something quick, so I decided to throw together the trolley problem thing. I think it was fine. It was mostly just like a placeholder, so I don't really know where to put it. I guess I'll put it, I would approach this differently now, just because, like, I think a better placeholder is tier lists. They're on brand as Fire Emblem. As fun as it was to play the trolley problem, part of the reason that I made a video was I thought that people would find it fun to watch, and people didn't find it fun to watch, so it was kind of just a miss. Yeah, that's probably the one Friday video that I feel the worst about. Not even because, like, I think it's a bad video, but because the point was, like, you know, I'm playing this game, people might find it enjoyable. Oh, they don't. Okay, never mind. Oh, this is a good one. SRPG Sapphics, the Chris Fina support. I really like this video. I think that, you know, it's talking about a very sensitive subject, a subject that I have personal experience with, and I think that I approached it with the gravity and seriousness that it deserved. I'm quite happy with this video. I think I'm gonna put it at the very top of great/proud of it. It's not like, yeah, I don't think it's my best work, but I think it's pretty damn close. And I think that, especially considering the subject matter, and especially considering anything, you know, tied to that, I think that it came out really good. I was somewhat dreading making this video, but also somewhat looking forward to it before I made it, just because I knew that this was going to be something I had to cover in SRPG Sapphics eventually. But it's also, yeah, there's just a lot of heavy stuff there. And I think that I approached it as best as I could. And I'm really happy about that. I'm proud of this video. This is the initial run of the Bad Units tier list that I did with Mithril Zenith, who, again, if you're looking for more Fire Emblem YouTubers to subscribe to, like, you know, there you go. You've got 3 recommendations from this video alone. So this is basically, we took a bunch of bad units and we ranked them in terms of how bad they are. I recently made a sort of like corrections video because I disagreed with some of the rankings that we ended up with. Like, my opinions shifted since then. And as a result, like, you know, I think that where this ends up probably is just, it's fine. This is a thumbnail as a stand-in for both part 1 and part 2, because this video was like 4.5 hours long, so we split it into 2 videos. I think that in general, our analysis was pretty good. I think that there were a couple of misses. The fact that we've corrected those misses definitely makes me feel better about the video, but I still think it's just pretty good. I think that's probably where I like it. It's just very fun to talk about bad units, to be honest. And so it was a real blast to make this video, you know, chatting about some of the absolute scrubs of the series, and getting to banter back and forth with Zenith about them, and share experiences that we had with them, I guess was the most enjoyable part of making the video. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and put it in pretty good. I think this, if I hadn't released any sort of corrections about it, I'd probably put it in either it's fine or I would approach it differently now. But, like, I have approached it differently now. I have made corrections to what I believe were misreads on our part, like, combined. I think we both made some mistakes, right? And I really like this topic. I like talking about them. And so does Zenith. So, like, you know, it's kind of just the perfect pairing to do that with. All right, so here we get to the cream of the crop. This is probably, like, this is tied for my favorite video that I've ever made. It is, so for those who don't know, this is my video on the Jagan archetype, where I go in depth on all of the units commonly considered to be Jagans, and Oifis, because I don't think that Oifi is a real archetype, or even a sub-archetype. I think it's just sort of a weird holdover from the point back in the day when we used to, as a community, think you're not supposed to use your Jagans. Pre-promote bad, you know, that era, the old game FAQs era. And Oifi was sort of, like, used as a term to differentiate, like, oh, well, Seth is actually good. Because even back then, people recognized how fucking cracked Seth is. Like, best unit in the fucking franchise. So people would call Seth an Oifi, people would call Titania an Oifi, and Oifi's not even, like, particularly strong in comparison to other Jagans, but people use that term because FE4 was a game that not a lot of people had played, but a lot of people had opinions about, shall we say. There were a lot of people who had, like, opinions about units in FE4, and had very clearly not played FE4. And it's one of those things where, like, I truly believe that, the non-translated games, like the games that never got official translation, they get fewer players because you do have to either apply a translation patch or find an already patched ROM, and like that's harder to do than just playing it on official hardware. So you get, you know, people who don't want to pirate, people who don't know how to or don't want to deal with applying patches, and then people who don't want to deal with the old school jank. So you get a lot fewer people who are playing them, and as a result, there's sort of the veneer, the exclusivity. And now that, like, the community as a whole has started playing the old Japanese games, I think that that sort of veneer and exclusivity has moved on to Tiering Saga, where a lot of times there's sort of hyperinflated opinions about those games because of how few people, sort of the exclusivity club, right? The hipster effect of, like, I'm one of the only people to have played this, so it must be good. But that's my sidebar on FE4. The main thing is that I liked the analysis that I put behind the various Jagans. And I think that I made a damn strong case against the idea of the Oifir archetype that has sort of ingrained itself in the community's sort of like collective consciousness. And hopefully people will, you know, use it less, use the term less, because I do think it's just like a not great term. Again, I think the origins come from people not being willing to admit that pre-promotes are actually good, because we were still in that game FAQ's brain space. And look, like, you know, we've all been there. Everyone has said that Marcus is a bad unit at some point. I mean, I haven't, but most people have. I am the one Marcus believer. I said Vander was a bad unit, though. So, like, again, we've all been there. This is the Love Disc solo run. And this was my Valentine's Day special because Love Disc is the heart Pokemon, and Love Disc is absolute fucking garbage. Much like with Sprigatito, like, I think I would do this differently now. I like this video better than I do the Sprigatito video, just because, like, you know, Fire Red, Leaf Green, solo runs of that are, you know, less of an issue. Love Disc, I knew going in, had the problem of just, like, extremely limited move pool, and the difficulty of, like, extremely limited move pool, extremely shitty stats, and typing that are not super well set for the Kanto Elite Four. As a result, the video ended up being split into 2 parts, which probably shouldn't have done, like, especially since it was a holiday special. Like, part 2 got many, many fewer views. The big reason I split it was because I had a good thumbnail for part 2, but I'm gonna put it just above the Weed Cat. Yeah, I think it's just barely above the Weed Cat. Next up, we have Tops and Bottoms with Stigurna. And this is the Path of Radiance Tops and Bottoms. This was the first Tops and Bottoms. It was meant to be a one-off, much like the FE4 Skills. It ended up becoming a series, just because it was fun to do and put together. And I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. Do I like it more or less than Valentia? I think I like it more than Valentia, but specifically because I like the cast more than Valentia. I'm not a fan of the Valentia games, and as a result, I'm not a huge fan of the Valentia casts. So as fun as it was to talk with Akira, who, like, you know, he is super into Valentia, so, like, hearing what she had to say about them and, you know, her various opinions and how they, it was fun. It's fun talking to your friends about things that they are interested in, and so I liked hearing from them. But with FE9, I enjoyed sharing my opinions just as much as I enjoyed hearing Stigurna's opinions, right? And Stigurna did, like, some research for this, too, which was really cool. Like, I actually learned stuff about the Tellius people. I think, actually, I'm going to put this above the Christmas special. I like this video better than the Christmas special, on second thought. I don't think it's enough to put it in, like, great, I'm proud of it, but I still think it's, like, the top of pretty good. Next up, we have a Mario Party tier list. This is another one that, like, this just should have been a Monday video, honestly. It was fun to put together, both in terms of, like, ranking the games, talking about my opinions and why I feel that way about them. and also then stringing together the various Mario Party music for the video. So that was fun, but everything else about it, like, it didn't get views, which I don't want to let that sour it too much, but, like, that did definitely... It was a big part of why I'm not doing Mario Party content anymore. People don't like that, which is fine. But, yeah, I guess I'd probably do it differently now. If I do, like, a Mario Party thing, I do have a couple of Mario Party things recorded that are just sort of, like, sitting in stasis, and if they ever go public, they'll probably be Monday stuff instead of, like, taking up a coveted Friday slot. I think this is probably... here? Yeah. I like it better than the Weed Cat playthrough, but that's about it. Okay, next up is my character, or no, this is my unit analysis on Mercedes. This is where I went super in-depth on Mercedes in particular in the early game, and highlighting the various problems that she faces as a member of your army throughout various stages of the game. I went very, very in-depth in the first 5, I think just the first 5 chapters was where I went the most in-depth in, because I do think that is where the majority of her problems come from. There are plenty of units that struggle to slot into a late-game build that aren't really bringing anything other than just, like, you know, the build being generically good. Like, for example, Ash can't really bring anything unique to any builds, but he can be a Vantage Wrath Wyvern, or he can be a Hunter Volley Sniper, and, like, it's fine. Another example is, like, Felix, you know, doesn't really bring anything unique to builds, but, like, he can go into Sniper or Brawler, and it's fine. However, the thing about these units is they often have things to offer in the early game. In the case of Felix, it's, like, very strong early game. In the case of Ash, it's not strong, but it's, like, he offers a free curve shot, which is something. And Mercedes' big problem, and the reason that I put her even below units like Ash and Anna, is that she doesn't offer you much in the early game. You get half-use physic, basically, is the big thing. And that's with some investment, too. So I think that, yeah, I like this video as well. I like this video a lot as well. I'm very proud of it. I think this goes here? Here? I don't know. One of these two. I'm going to let Leaf and Sigurd hang out together. So I'm going to put it here. It's my list. I can come up with whatever reason I want to put things in places. This was the video on whether or not there's going to be an FE4 remake. And I think this is a pretty good video. Unfortunately, it's not, like, as watchable as it used to be, because, like, with a copyright strike, I had to strip some audio, and I think that affected my voice in a couple of sections. But other than that, I did a pretty good job running down all of the quote-unquote evidence, and making a case against the leaks that there's going to be an FE4 remake. And pointing out how I think that the fan base is kind of just, like, clinging to copium, and a lot of the evidence is extremely, extremely stretched. When you ignore the fact that somebody said there will be an FE4 remake, there's not really anything to it. And I say ignore the fact that somebody said there's an FE4 remake, and the reason is that the person who said it isn't actually as credible as they present themselves to be. I go into the video, if you haven't seen it, like, definitely watch it. I think it's good. I mean, obviously, I think it's good. I made it. Well, I don't think everything I made is good. Like, that's what these tiers are for. But I do think it still holds up. Even if they do announce a remake at the next E3, I do think everything I say in it holds up. And I would definitely, you know, I stand by it. I'm gonna put it at the very bottom of I'm proud of it, because I think I did a good job. I went in with a bias. I thought there would be one, and I looked at all the evidence, and I came to the conclusion that actually, the evidence is kind of duty. The evidence is kind of duty. Rosado video. Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. This was when I was first getting on my feet with sort of the Friday video stuff. This is sort of an honorary SRBG Sapphics, especially since I've extended the series to just be queer people in general, not just Sapphics. So he would fit right in because, like, you know, whether or not he's queer, it's a video about queer issues with the idea of, you know, people the egg culture approach to Rosado, right? The idea of like insisting that he must be trans, and misgendering him just because he doesn't fit into traditional masculine roles. And I go into a lot of it in the video. I think it's very good. Obviously, I think it's good. Again, I made it. But Rosado's voice actor also thought it was good. Join the Discord. It was awesome. And as a result, like, I feel like this has to go in my best work. Like, it got the attention of the voice actor of one of my favorite characters of the most recent game. It's kind of hard to trump that. If I were to make it today, I think I could make it better. But you gotta start somewhere. And I think, honestly, for as early as it was in my approach to, not scripted content, because I don't script any of my shit, but to sort of long-form content, more serious, like I call them the Friday vids, right? I think for such an early entry, it was quite good. Next up, we have my 2K special Q&A. I think it's fine. I think it's better than all of these ones. You kind of gotta do, like, I don't know, a lot of the subscriber milestone stuffs are, like, really generic stuff. Q&A was just sort of, you know, the next go-to. I did a Q&A for 500, but 2K is 4 times as many as 500. I thought I would have more people with more questions, and I did. And people asked the questions, and I answered them. Nothing really special about that. Next up is my Mercedes character analysis video. And I think that this is, like, it's either this or Oify's the best video I made, depending on my mood. It goes back and forth between these two. I'm putting Rosado in here, but I think that his video is a third place. Like, it's one of these two is the best. I think personally, at the moment, currently I like Mercedes best, but it goes back and forth between them. These are my 2 favorite videos that I've ever made. I really, really liked how the Mercedes video turned out, especially since she's a character who I thought was really boring before I did the deep dive into her supports, into her boss conversations, into her story moments, and now she is probably my favorite Three Houses character. And not probably, she's definitely my favorite Three Houses character. Like, Mercedes is fucking awesome. It's a shame that she's such an awful, awful unit, but she is phenomenal. I'm really happy with the video, both in terms of just, like, the way that, you know, obviously, the fact that it introduced me to a new side of a character I overlooked was great, but I also think the way that I presented the information, you know, the narrative way that they all link together with each other, is well done. I think it's well researched. I cite my sources. Thank you, James Somerton. So, you know, it's, and I did that before there was a big plagiarism video. So, you know, all the people who are scrambling to cite their sources now, get on it. I was already doing it. But yeah, I think this is a fucking phenomenal video. And I'm allowed to say that. This was when Zenith and I revisited our bad units list. So it's kind of appropriate that the follow-up ended up after the bad units list. But I think this was good. I really liked, again, much of what I said about this one where, you know, someone who shares my passion for bad units, and so it's sort of the perfect person to bounce that off of was Zenith. But I think this goes here, probably. I'm pretty proud of this. I think this goes in pretty good, but like the top of pretty good, like here. Yeah, this seems good for it. Again, a lot of what I said about this video applies to this one as well. It's a topic that I enjoy talking about. It's a topic that Zenith enjoys talking about. We had good banter with each other, bouncing off each other, and we corrected what I saw as some issues with the initial tier list. So I'm happy with that. This is my video on reclassing, and in particular, the way that infinite reclassing in Engage, but also in Three Houses to a lesser extent, hurts unit diversity, or unit feel, I guess would be the term for it, to credit, or to borrow a Bopper phrasing, the unit feel. And that, I think it's a pretty good video. I sort of break down the way that I think reclassing would best be suited in the future, which if you haven't seen the video is I would like a mode option similar to Classic versus Casual, where there's limited reclassing, where you get the Awakening and Fates thing where everyone has specific limits, and then there's free reclassing, where you get you can go to anything. And the reason for this is if someone doesn't like reclassing, they can just choose to never reclass. If someone likes reclassing but doesn't like the way that Freeform makes the units really homogenous, they can go to limited reclassing and they get things like the Awakening Fates one, where, you know, that can lead to some cool unit design stuff as well. So for example, you know, Charlotte has Maid as her or not Maid, Strategist, or whatever it's called. I think it's Strategist, yeah. Where she can, or Troubadour, where she can go either Strategist or Maid, or she can stay in Fighter and go Hero or Berserker. So you can go like Big Strength Berserker backpack, you can go Hero for Soul, you can send her in a Maid and have Soul Maid. So those sorts of approaches to unit design just sort of aren't available if reclassing is just infinite. And it just makes everyone really blend together. Like in Engage, units are kind of just balls of stats and they become like, all become warriors. So yeah, I think this is a pretty good video. I think I'm going to put it here. I think this is a good place for it. I'm pretty happy with it. This was my video on puzzle games. And so I did a rapid fire of 3 different puzzle games, 2 of which I liked, one of which was hot fucking garbage. So the 2 that I liked were Bases and Brigands, and oh, what is it called? It's the one where you're the edgelord. Oh, On the Edge. Those are both phenomenal. They took the idea of a Fire Emblem puzzle game and they went in different directions. Bases and Brigands starts as a puzzle game, and then like by the end it feels more like a traditional Fire Emblem game, whereas On the Edge uses the mechanics of Fire Emblem to create a game that isn't really a Fire Emblem game. Like, On the Edge is not a Fire Emblem game, it's just a puzzle game using the mechanics of Fire Emblem. And it's really, really, really cool. Now, the elephant in the room is that I also compared these games to Fire Emblem One Turn Clear. The game is dog shit. I was kinder to it at the time, mostly because, like, I try to be kind to ROM hackers' works and stuff, and, like, they're while it didn't gel with me, I thought, you know, maybe it'll gel with other people, it's worth presenting. I sort of presented it, even in the video, as, like, you know, I see where it's going, but it did go wrong, but I didn't use words like dog shit, and the reason that I'm harsher now is, turns out the creator of that hack is, like, affiliated with Mings, one of the sexual predators of the Fire Emblem community, and so I don't really have sympathy for his feelings. If he thinks that his, if he's mad that I called his shitty hack shit, he should get better at hacking. Anyway, this goes in great. I'm proud of it, I think. Very bottom of great, I'm proud of it, but I'm quite happy with this video and the way that it used multiple examples of approaches and a failed approach to puzzle games to sort of illustrate the best way to make a Fire Emblem puzzle game. And not necessarily the best way, because there are 2 different routes that both work well, just they have their own strengths. And I like this video. I think it was good. This video was a follow-up to the Cavs video. I got a bunch of comments asking about Fagato, Bune, and Morbius? Yeah, his name is Morbius. Specifically because, like, in the Cavaliers video, I guess people thought that I meant just, like, all mounted units instead of specifically the Cavalier line. I don't know if, like, it's because it was early Engage, and so, like, the idea of, like, oh, well, Cavalier promotes into, you know, Paladin or Wolf Knight was probably not something people realized at the time, just because, like, people were not really promoting Cavaliers, because Amber and, yeah, it's just Amber was the only one who could promote, specifically strictly from Cavalier without reclassing. So, yeah, I guess because of that, people wanted to know about the other horse people. I think this analysis is noticeably weaker than the one on these ones, partially because, like, I had a general idea going in here, and this was more just sort of to, I guess, acquiesce demands from the comment section would be a way to phrase it. You know, people wanted to know my thoughts on them, and I thought, yeah, I'll give my thoughts on them, but most of my thoughts on them were, it wasn't anything new. It wasn't anything people weren't already talking about. I think it's fine, but, like, the very bottom of it's fine. Probably better than the tier. Actually, I think I like the tier list better than it, especially with the context of, like, you know, family emergency type deal. This is my doubled or nothing hack review. And 80% of the video is just me gushing over the cast and talking about the ways in which the cast, like, sort of stand out from each other. And I think it's good. I think it's a good analysis of the cast. I think it's sort of highlights the creativity that went into designing all of these units and making them all stand out from each other and be useful. I could have made the comparison to Valentia and FE4. In retrospect, that's the biggest thing I probably should have done, is like point out how, you know, this is similar to FE4 and SOV, where you get to use your whole cast. But unlike those games where, like, because the cast is so unbalanced and there's like some people who are really good and some who are really bad, you're often incentivized not to really use some people, and like oftentimes a couple of people just get left in the home castle in FE4 or like undeployed in SOV. Here, everyone is useful, and you kind of need everyone to tackle the difficulty, because this is actually a difficult game, whereas like FE4 and SOV are both easy. So like, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing that I missed. But otherwise, like, it's mostly just a breakdown of the cast, and the ways in which they are both impacted by the doubling gimmick, and also the ways in which, like, they themselves impact the gameplay overall. And I think it's a pretty good approach to that. I'm gonna put it here. I guess I am ordering the tiers, even though I said I wouldn't. This is the trainees video. I'm not gonna lie, like 80% of the reason I made this is I had a scrapped video about Jean, and I wanted to use the thumbnail that says confirmed bad and points to the British flag, and also to John saying, like, that he's bad. And I sort of, like, fit the rest of that. That's the reason that, like, half of the thumbnail is the John stuff, is because I'm reusing that thumbnail from a scrapped video about Jean. So, yeah, for the video itself, I think it's pretty alright. It was launched sort of in tandem with Akira's S video, which is awkward when I ended up making an S video myself. But it sort of went into the issues that I find when using trainees. I like the idea of talking about Leaf and Lachesis as trainees, just because, like, they're a different approach to it. I think I touched on Naren in the video as well, the Tearing Saga unit, who, again, a different approach to it because it's Paragon and promotion. That's the big thing for him. Overall, I think the structure of the going in depth into each of the units is a fine way to cover the archetypes, but it's mostly just like, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I'm gonna put it here. Yeah, I think I like it less than the Christmas Cavalier video, actually. I think I'm gonna put it here. It's still good though. It's still fine. Fine. Pretty good is like the most full tier. Maybe I'll move tops and bottoms FE9 up to the very bottom of great / I'm proud of it. Next up we have the Aaron pairings video. This is where I talk about the various benefits from giving Aaron a magical husband. I compared all the magical husbands to Aaron, all the magical husbands for Aaron to each other, as well as the option of killing her off for Hawk. And physical was just sort of like treated as its own broad spectrum, because I do think that while you can do some physical stuff to make Fee, like, for example, give her Nihil to make her not weak to arrows or whatever, for the most part, I think most of the physical dads are just, like, not very good. I also think Nihil's not very good on her, but beside the point. I think this is a pretty good video. Everything's going in pretty good. I got some, like, pushback from, like, I guess if you're suggesting any sort of, like, pairing guide, there's always going to be people who are upset because, like, you know, shipping is something people get really personal about. And it sort of, like, steered me away from, I was going to do a couple of other pairings videos, but I don't know, I'm not super enthused about making FE4 pairings videos, just because, I don't know, of the reception that this one got. But I still think it's a fine video. I think it goes here. I think that my advice holds up if what you care about is sort of optimizing kids. But I also think that, like, you know, at the end of the day, FE4 is a pretty easy game. You do not have to optimize your kids. Like, it's a pretty easy game. This is my Breath of the Wild sort of like impressions video. I don't think I should have made this video. And honestly, I felt that way like a day after it went up. I still don't know why I made it. Like, I guess maybe just trying to capitalize on clicks, but even then, like, I'm not really... I mean, first off, my audience is Fire Emblem. Like, it wasn't going to get Zelda clicks. But also, like, I don't want to make videos specifically for clicks. Like, you look at the videos that I've made that I'm really happy with, and, like, not all of them are, like, wide appeal. You know, like, the Puzzle Games video did not do numbers, but I'm really happy with it because I feel like I did a good breakdown on the way that you can take Fire Emblem mechanics into a puzzle video and whatnot. You know, the various SRPG sapphic stuff, like, those are for a niche audience, people who are interested in story-based Fire Emblem queer stuff. I genuinely don't know why I give a fucking Zelda impressions thing a Friday slot. I think part of this was just, like, the hesitancy to put anything on Monday. If I were to, you know, make a video talking about another game that I enjoyed that wasn't Fire Emblem, or Fire Emblem adjacent, I would probably put it in Monday. I've got another game that I'm playing right now. It's an older one, but one that I've, you know, kind of want to talk about my feelings of. And if I were to do that, it'd probably just pop up on a Monday rather than be a Friday video. The Path of Radiance personal skill. So this is the third of the personal skill videos that I've done, and this is my favorite of them. I think this one goes above the Mercy unit video. I love the Tellius cast. The Tellius cast is my favorite cast in the series, and I'm really happy with the skills that I gave everyone. There's a few that I felt like were kind of flops, and I'll probably address them when I do Radiant Dawn, and sort of update the skills, but other than that, I'm really happy with the skills that I gave people. And I think it was good. I think it was a good video. Not much to say that I didn't say about the other skill ones, like interacting with unique mechanics in the game was really cool. Diving into supports and taking like specific characters like support quirks and stuff. It's good. It's good and good. This was my 1K special, ranking the Fire Emblem games. It's fine. I think it's better than the 2K special because it was fun to talk about, like, sort of do mini reviews for the various games. But it's mostly just, it's fine. It's mostly just fine. It's better than the Q&A, especially because, like, Q&A is super generic. But I think it's mostly just fine. This was the second ROM hack review that I did, and it was Oops All Archers. And I don't think I would make a video like this nowadays. I think that I would rather address wholly original ROM hacks rather than sort of remixes. That said, Oops All Archers isn't just like I made everyone into an archer. There's, you know, the skill system changes, the various new classes and stuff. It does really feel like a remix rather than just like a meme hack. And I do think it is a cool remix of Sacred Stones. I just would probably rather focus most of my ROM hack review stuff on the wholly original games. Maybe like the occasional remix one, but to make it my second ROM hack review, I feel like set a precedent that I didn't necessarily want to set. As for the video itself, I think it was pretty poorly made as well. I think that the footage didn't really match what I was talking about enough. Like, oftentimes it would just be footage of Oops All Archers and not, like, the specific chapters or units that I was talking about. And that definitely, like, you know, it's something most people probably don't notice. But now that I've said it, everyone will, for this video in particular. But yeah, that definitely was a little bit eh. I also think just like the sections that I broke it down into weren't exactly like the smoothest. I don't think this is a very good review. And I feel bad because, you know, it doesn't give Heroic Vileplume the justice that the game deserves. I also timed it in a weird way. I thought that the new version was coming out the day that it went up, but it actually came out a couple of days later than that, so that's a little bit, you know, sour as well. So I think actually, yeah, I like it better than Weed Cat, but probably better than, actually, no, I like Mario Party better than it. This is not to disparage Oops All Archers. If you're a big fan of Sacred Stones and you want to remix your next playthrough, Oops All Archers is a phenomenal way to do that. And it really does make the maps feel different from each other with just those changes. But I didn't do it justice in the review, and I do feel sad about that in terms of, I don't think it's great work. What I do think is great work in ROM hack reviews is Call of the Armor. I really like this one. I think that this is probably the best review I've done thus far. Yeah, this is probably my best ROM hack review. I think I'll put it here. I think I did a good job enthusiastically selling it. I think I made a very good case for it to be like a good on-ramp for ROM hack reviews. I'm definitely biased because it is the ROM hack that I enjoy the most. But even that aside, I think that, you know, the points that I raise about like why it should be sort of like if you're just trying to get into ROM hacking, like it's a good place to turn. But also it shouldn't be limited to that. I think they're good and I like them. So yeah, maybe it goes down here. But I do think this is probably my best review of the ROM hack reviews that I've done. So this is the breaking down my top 25 non-Fire Emblem games. And this was a wholly original idea that I came up with on my own, and it is far and away the best video I've ever made. Honestly, it probably deserves its own tier as just, you know, the best, but unfortunately it only got like 500 views, which is a travesty. If you haven't seen it already, definitely watch breaking down my top 25 non-Fire Emblem games. It is the best thing that I've ever made. And honestly, the best thing anyone on this platform has ever made. And other creators should delete their channels in shame in response. Because it can't be topped. It can't be topped. This is the La Rochelle video. This video is very good. Another good SRPG Sapphics video. It's going to join the triumvirate of I'm proud of it, the top of I'm proud of it videos. Do I like this one better than the Chris video? I think I like the Chris video better, but it is close. I think I make a very strong case for La Rochelle being bi, as opposed to het or lesbian, which are the two interpretations I see most often. The biggest thing that holds it back from being my best work is when I talked about Dozla, and her paired ending with Dozla, where in my interpretation they get married. I presented it as a lot more airtight than it was. I didn't really see any other interpretation, but some commenters pointed out that they read it as him crying at her wedding, sort of like him giving her away as the bride, or like just attending the wedding as someone who like loves her platonically and crying out of happiness that she's marrying someone else. And I think that's a valid interpretation. It's not the one that I have. I do think that Dozla and La Rochelle do get married in that paired ending. But I also think that the phrasing is vague enough that it's open to both interpretations, right? And I presented it as my interpretation being the only one because I hadn't heard the other interpretation. I didn't, it wasn't something that occurred to me. So yeah. Heather, I like the Heather video a lot as well. I think this was a very good video. Deep diving, much like Mercedes, deep diving into a character who I have not a lot of experience with character-wise, although I use her in a lot of runs of Radiant Dawn. Is this video good enough to earn my best work? I think it is. I did a lot of really subtle editing tricks, like her walking on screen during an introductory moment. I'm happy with the way I cut the videos. It's a lot of like, I didn't do any of the stuff that I did in like the S video, for example, where I have images pop up. But it more was like, I'm happy with the way I cut specific clips together and the way that transitions worked in order to sort of like give anyone who's watching gets sort of like sneak peeks of into like, you know, the specific music starts playing at specific points. Just a lot of really, really subtle stuff. I also really liked the analysis that I gave her and talking about how I feel that a lot of the stuff directed at her, in particular the misandry allegations, and a lot of the undue hate in comparison to other sort of like not super likable characters, comes mostly from, or not entirely from, but like partially from the fact that she is a queer woman, and sort of like that approach. So I think that, like, you know, not to be a parody of myself, but like some amount of the hate comes from just misogyny, like the culture. So there's that. I think it was a good video. I like the breakdown of all of it. So this was my video on Octopath Traveler versus Bravely Default, and the way that their endgames approach the idea of like broken builds. I think it's a pretty good video. It unfortunately, not being Fire Emblem related, was never going to do good, so I just sort of saved it for an off week. And it sucks that, like, I am proud of the video. It's probably like very bottom of great. I'm proud of it. It's just that, you know, I knew it was never going to do super well. It's better than I expected, TBH, but didn't do great. But yeah, I think this is for anyone who's interested in Bravely Default or Octopath 2, I think this was a cool breakdown of the ways that those two games approach the idea of using broken builds, and why Bravely Default's is much more successful than Octopath 2's, and why Octopath 2's endgame sort of becomes a slog as a result of that. This was my Fire Emblem 9 tier list, and I would approach this differently. It's at the very top of I would approach this differently, because I wouldn't approach it too much differently. Actually, I think I'm going to put it in... it's fine, actually. The reason that it's not in pretty good, which is where I would have it otherwise, is I don't think I did a great job of specifying my criteria when it comes to tier lists. Granted, this video was after my charity stream, and as a result, like, I'm still in dead brain, stayed up for 24 hours mode, in terms of, like, the entire week was just sort of, like, recovering from that. But the tier list itself, I think, is incredibly solid. Like, it is just my thoughts on the Path of Radiance tier list. It's my solidified thoughts. I've had those thoughts for a while. The reason the tier list was already made up, as opposed to me dragging them up there, is, like, I have this game's tier so set in stone in my mind that, like, the biggest thing was that I just didn't share my criteria well enough. I did share some amount of criteria, but I am planning on making a video that just goes into my tier list criteria, as the entire video. And the reason for that is because I don't feel comfortable releasing future tier lists without a really in-depth approach to the way that I look at tier lists, because I think that's important to have. Next up is Fire Emblem review. I think this was a very good review. I talked about the specific ways in which a lot of the mechanics of Fire Emblem help accomplish the main goal of making an Iron Man-able game. The ways in which it is, like, at its best when you Iron Man it. The ways in which it's just, like, everything folds into each other. And just makes it a very, very pleasant experience. And that's coming from someone who doesn't Iron Man the vanilla games. As a result, I think I'm going to put it in great. I'm proud of it. I think I'm going to put it in pretty good, but the very top of pretty good. This unfortunately pumps the tiers again, but it's fine. Formatting is a thing. This is one emblem equals one answer. This was a shitpost. Where there was some, like, graphic going around Twitter, but because I don't have a Twitter, I was like, aha, I'll make content out of it as a shitpost. It's not a good video, but it's like, well, I guess so it's a good shitpost, but it's not like, you know, on the, all of the rest of these videos are not shitposts. It's included because I put it in the Friday slot, and I would probably just put it on Monday instead of in the Friday slot going forward, you know, like I did with, like, the Gilmore Girls video, for example. I think as it stands, like, it's fine, other than that. I'm gonna put it at the bottom of it's fine because I did put it out on a Friday and I wouldn't otherwise, but, like, I think it's a good shitpost. And it also, like, so, because the, like, the thing was called 1 like equals 1 answer, I kept making a joke about how, like, you have to like the video with 25 alt accounts in order to listen to the entire thing. And as such, I would say, like it every fucking 5 seconds. And I was playing it up, and hopefully people realized that I wasn't actually asking for likes, but that video got more like to view than basically any other video I've made, and that makes me sad because it means that, like, repeatedly asking for likes over and over and over does actually work, even if you do it as, like, part of a shitpost. So I guess I'll ask you to like this video, because apparently that works, but also, it makes me sad that it does. That you saying it so many times worked, I guess, is the thing. Like, I'm not sad that saying like the video makes people like the video, because, like, I also watch videos on YouTube and frequently forget to hit like unless there's a call to action. So, like, I get it. But the fact that me saying like the video, like the video, like the video over and over and over, sort of parodying the excessive, because there are people who do excessive call to actions. Like, I've watched 20-minute videos where someone will include 5 different calls to action, and I'm like, that's too much. But parodying that apparently did fucking work, and it gave me the best like to view ratio I've ever gotten. Which is just sad. Next is the 4 Kings. Oh, you know, this is actually going to give... This is going to give Call of the Armor a run for its money in terms of my best review. I think this is a better review than Call of the Armor. And I think it's because it was such a mixed hack for me. The parts that I enjoyed, I fucking loved. And the parts that I didn't, I was very upset at some of the story stuff. But I also think that I was able to appropriately convey that criticism and also see the good intentions where it was coming from, and, you know, phrase it in such a way that was not attacking Crash. I'm gonna put this just above the Call of the Armor review. I think this is my best review, but I think it's close. I think I did a good job of recommending this for the sort of people who would want this type of game, and also warning away people who would not be interested in it, because it's a game that's not for everyone. Like, it is very polarizing, but I fell on the side of enjoying it, and despite having some significant criticisms as well. Mainly the story, but also the lack of weapon variety in the endgame, I think, was an issue. Mainly the story, though. Like, that was my biggest gripe. And the way that the story, not only just sort of like the quality of the story in general, but also the I guess representation, the bad representation, that comes from a good place. Nobody fucking, like, again, please don't, like, Crash is not, like, a bigot. I want to make that clear. Next up is the Tops and Bottoms Arcanea with Roche Jana. So, like, again, we're just finding more and more people for you to subscribe to. Roche's channel, subscribe. You know, do it. Do it. This was another good Tops and Bottoms video. It's... Arcanea is a cast that, like, I don't have a lot of affection for. I know that that's a fucking mortal sin, and Roche's gonna dox me and kill me now. Not actually. But it is, I think it's gonna go in the same place as Akira, because I enjoyed talking about them with Roche, sort of bouncing off of each other, the completely unhinged energy that we brought into the discussion. The unhinged energy being reflected in the thumbnail. It was a really, really, really fun video to make. Yeah, I think that it goes in pretty good as a result of that. My Octopath review, I think it was basically everything I said about Zelda, but I'm going to put it above because I think it was a much better... I think this is, again, the sort of thing that I would now release on, like, a Monday, because I do want to sort of, like, do these halfway reviews of other games that are not Fire Emblem or Fire Emblem adjacent. But I don't want them to take up the Friday slot. And I think that Octopath was one that I had, like, stronger thoughts on in comparison to Tears of the Kingdom. Especially as time goes on, like, Tears of the Kingdom is a game that I, like, enjoyed when it first came out, and I don't know, my opinion's soured on it. I never finished it. I just sort of, I don't know, I fell off it. And last, well, not last, because there's one that isn't on here. I just realized that I forgot to add the Boots video. But, last for this current crop, and then I'll put the Armors one on, is, Tops and Bottoms FE7. I really enjoyed this as well, despite the fact that I fucking hate FE7. Bear in mind that it's only at the bottom of the Tops and Bottoms because I fucking hate FE7. This is me bringing in the anti-FE7 hatred and bias. But Tatsunami, again, if you're looking for people to subscribe to, like, this video's full of them. Tatsunami was incredibly fun to just sort of, like, you know, shoot the breeze with. Talk about these characters that, like, she has so much more knowledge on than I do. So yeah, that was a very fun time. And ranking them and judging them and the utter contempt for Sane that we shared was also a very, very funny and fun moment in terms of that. Alright, and the one I forgot to add was giving the Armor Knights more movement. This was another simultaneous release with Akira. And I think that this was a very good video as well. I'm gonna put it here. I think it was probably worse than the reclassing one, but it's the same general idea of, like, taking the sort of, like, the issues that I have with a mechanical choice that is frequently made in Fire Emblem. And in this one, it's the idea of penalizing armors by giving them worse than infantry move. My general argument was that no amount of combat is worth having 4 movement, because, like, 4 is so little. And then I don't have an issue with, like, you know, lower move than cavalry, but I think that both from a lore and gameplay perspective, it just doesn't make sense to have the movement be lower than infantry. And my idea was that the approach is not balance, and I don't think this would balance or fix them, but also I don't think Armor Knights need fixing, because there are plenty of suboptimal classes that have niche applications. It's just a matter of that Armor Knights is so bad that, like, it kind of just doesn't have niche applications. So that was that video. I think I struggled a little bit to convey the point that I wanted to convey, which is kind of why I rephrased the entire point here, but otherwise I think it was pretty good. So that is the rankings of all of the videos, well, not all the videos because I did a bunch of Let's Plays, but all of the Friday videos and otherwise videos that feel like they fit in that, you know, sort of the holiday special type deals. So thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. You know, 1 like equals 1 answer. And if you are interested in supporting me financially, I've mentioned it before, but there is a Patreon linked below. And if you'll excuse me, I'm going to now record the Patreon sign-off. Thank you to all of my Patreons who are on screen right now, and in particular, thank you to my pre-promotes, Jamie Collins, Marin Karen, Thick Molder, George Ganbrel the 7th PM, Danielle Kalaskas, Anya, Tailored Muffin, Dr. Majalis, Herc, SUP, Gabe the Green, and Michaela Bozeman. If you are interested in supporting the channel and getting a bunch of cool benefits, then there is a link to the Patreon below, but please only do so if you have the money to do it comfortably. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a wonderful new year. Bye-bye and stay safe.